Hello and welcome to Obstacle Illusion. I am April Gallagher and I am joined here today with my dear friend and partner in crime, Anna Clint.
Hi.
And we are somewhat funnily, perhaps, trying to figure out what the purpose of this call is today. Actually trying to figure out what we're talking about. Typically, the theme comes out of the last one. And really what came out of the last one was the desire to lay forth the journey that we would like to take you on through over the course of some amount of time through these conversations of obstacle illusion. And we were just discussing this morning, what that journey would be and what that would look like. And right now we've kind of settled upon purpose and walking in your purpose and all of the things that brings up, everything that kind of needs to be understood and addressed along the way of living your purpose, including starting with the idea of having one.
The most basic part of purpose is, do you actually believe you have a purpose?
Right.
Because lots of people don't.
Right. So, yeah, and there's even here, that's where I get stuck. Oh, that's where I get stuck. So starting with is there a purpose? Do we have a purpose? Mm-hmm. How do you find one? What does that look like? Is there just one? Are there many? What is right. This ball of wax that we're talking about? So that is the conversation that we're embarking on, I would say.
Yes. And we're going to talk messy through it.
Oh, yeah.
As usual. Yeah. So that's one thing that always comes up for me is that there's kind of this ideological divide, I'll speak for Americans, around purpose, because so many people that I know, don't really, outside of the spiritual community, people that I know and love and care about and that really respect, don't necessarily talk in terms of purpose, in terms of what their soul is here to make manifest in the 3D during their lifetime. And I know a lot of people, really just believe that humans evolve through chance and chaos, and that, there is no purpose. We're just here, we're just animals, we're living, we're procreating, we're eating, we're dying, that kind of a thing. And while I believe that everyone can have their own beliefs, personally, that fills me with a sense of deep despair and quiet desperation to think that I'm just here to procreate and to eat and to sleep and then to make money so that I can support the capitalist machine and then die. There's no joy in that for me. There's zero joy.
I when you're talking, there's something that I was thinking about, which was that a lot of times, a lot of conversations around what's the truth, finding the truth, and whether we're whether the somewhat depressing thing you just laid out is the truth, or whether we have a purpose is the truth. And I always just feel like there's, and maybe it's just my own, my own personal philosophy or whatever, but it's maybe that doesn't matter, what the truth is, or what the truth, whether something's true or not. What matters is, or what seems to be more useful is, why don't you just choose? We're probably not going to know, we're not really going to know what really the purpose of humanity is, and we're certainly not going to agree on it. So why don't we just say okay, then why don't you choose to believe something that really feels good, that fills you with joy, that gives you
totally
that. So it's
yeah,
let's not get caught up in the arguments of
who's right and who's wrong.
Who's right and who's wrong. Why don't we just decide, like,
Yeah.
what feels inspiring, what feels joyful, and then go with that, right?
Totally.
And
Not begrudging anyone else's choice. If they choose chance and chaos and life, procreation, death, and that's it, that's totally fine. If that brings them peace and some modicum of joy, that's totally fine. It doesn't for me.
I'm pretty sure that, like, there's been a ton of studies that show that doesn't.
I'm pretty sure too.
Well, if TED Talks have anything to
TED Talks are
bearing
true.
on really what exists in the human experience,
Totally.
purpose does show up a lot, right?
Absolutely.
Aligning yourself with something greater than yourself, or something outside of yourself, something other than just making money, that tends to, and of course there's probably some exceptions to the rule, but tends to do something within us that makes the switch, that does open that doorway for joy, open for fulfillment, for
satisfaction. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I say this all the time. I mean, not literally all the time, but I say it like with some frequency. It's that we are acting out on our beliefs all the time. And some of those beliefs are basically harmful to us and hurt us. And some of those beliefs bring us joy and happiness. And each one of us, I truly believe that each one of us is actually living in our own version of reality, based on our perceptions, based on our beliefs, based on whatever, what we can literally filter out of the environment is creating our reality. Mm-hmm. And so we can actually choose to create a reality that does light us up, is what you're saying. And I do say this all the time, like, we have the mental capacity. So why not choose something that you like? Why do we keep, stop choosing things that keep us feeling small or depleted or powerless, for instance? But so that's a side note. But yes, I do believe that we do have a choice, and your choice is going to be different from my choice potentially, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, full agreement with that. Mm-hmm. So purpose. I mean,
I guess the basic thing is, like, choose to have one.
Choose to have one.
Or not, but make a choice.
Make a choice. Recognize that you have the choice. The choice is up to you, whether you choose to live a life on purpose, or whether you choose to believe that you have a purpose. And I mean, just very fundamentally, I mean, how sad is it to feel like you don't have a purpose, right? Or those periods in your life when you felt like you didn't have a purpose, like how, when you look back on them, like much smaller they were, and smaller in terms of, like living a big life and a small life, not in terms of brevity. Yeah, and so I think I also feel like there's some confusion about what it means to have like what purpose means, like the definition of purpose. Like, if I'm here for a purpose, does that mean that my purpose is to, own a certain company, or have this certain career?
Right. It gets tangled up in career and in how we make money, which is a real stumbling block. Right.
Mm-hmm. And so I think you and I, even without having talked about this before this very moment, would agree that purpose doesn't mean career. It's not about your profession.
That's right.
It is possible to live your purpose through a profession, but or to express it through, but it's not the
right. It's not contingent.
Mm-hmm. It's not contingent.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that is one of the hugest obstacles.
That's actually an illusion.
It's actually an illusion. And I do feel that a lot of people get stuck there, especially when they see people like us, or maybe more like me. Just teasing you.
Where's this going?
Who have built a business around their purpose. Like, I have built a business around it, but this is not my sole purpose. Mm-hmm. As I was saying, one of my purposes is to rescue animals who need to be rescued and rehabilitated. I have done it over and over again throughout my life. I don't do it on a large scale. I do it on a small scale, one animal at a time, but it's still something that has, as I look back on my life, like, okay, that's actually one of the things that I'm called here to do. And, there are other things that I'm called to do that have nothing to do with this, flourish by design business, that have nothing to do with transformational coaching and healing. Or do they? I don't know, but they don't have to fall under this umbrella of this business, and I don't have to quote unquote monetize it or anything like that. And I do see that a lot of people go, well, my purpose, I really like this thing, but how do I make money at it? Well, you don't have to make money at it. If it's what makes you the best version of you and you don't make money at it, who cares? Make money doing something else. It's like, I think that's part of that's maybe one of the risks, or not dangers, but just one of the complications of this transformational business community is we are always saying, like, live your purpose. And we have this thing in our culture that says, do what you love and the money will follow. I don't know that that's true 100% of the time. It could be, but it should say, do what you love and feel supported and cared for. And that's different from money, because you could do what you love in a volunteer capacity and have other things come to you that you need, but that is not money, for instance, just to talk messy through that.
So kind of before we started recording, we were talking about purpose, and I was talking about how I have this somewhat canned thing that I say it's canned because it came out of a book, and so it's not unique to me. It's whoever else has the same astrology, which is to channel healing, truth, optimism, and faith into the world. But the reason it stuck with me is because it resonated so strongly when I heard it, and that's the sort of purpose that it doesn't matter if I'm singing. Well, let me just say, if I'm singing, I'm not bringing any joy into the world. People's bodies are contracting and things are so. But it's the sort of thing that it doesn't matter what I'm doing if I can remember that what I'm here to do is to stand in this optimism and this optimism that the part of the reason this resonates so strongly with me is that I do have, like, to my core, like, and always have, just this super deep knowingness that it's all going to be okay, that we are going to make it. And I know that not everybody has that. And I know I'm extremely grateful that I do have it, because it's always there, and it kind of helps through anything. But because it's easily accessible for me, it does kind of also make sense that it's my job to continue to hold that through any situation. So it doesn't matter if I'm, in line at the grocery store, or deep in a one-on-one with a client or something, like, I can still access that. And it's the sort of thing that I also talked about in my transformation through clarity program, which is figuring out it's, to me, like, this purpose is almost like a mission statement too, right? It's really uncovering what it is that's so important to you that you can realign with it all the time, and you can bring it with you everywhere,
Right.
Whether you're flossing your teeth or whether you're, on stage in front of thousands. It's what are you, what's your light? Like, what is your particular light shining? And just touching one person with that is enough to have it be your purpose.
Absolutely. Touching one dog with that is enough to be your purpose.
One-eyed dog.
One-eyed dog. Definitely. Talking about you, kid. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you're striking on a good point too, is that we put so much pressure on ourselves. Like, our purpose has to be like something really big or something really visible or something really, you know, that may be completely out of alignment with who you are, like, and your sensibilities, you know, or your capabilities, or your, you know, like if you live in a tiny village in Africa, like how are you going to get on a stage in front of 1 million people? Like that doesn't necessarily compute. It
Mhm.
could compute this, you know, in today's world of interconnectedness and, you know, technology and all that other stuff. But it doesn't mean that you don't have a purpose that is equally as important. And like you said, touching one life is
Mhm.
enough.
Mhm.
And in fact, I would even go further to say touching your own life is enough, which is to say that like sometimes, like I just feel like one, our purpose is to heal from our past, to wake up, to move through the world with open eyes, open heart. That does ripple out and touch other people's lives. But the first and foremost is you.
Mhm.
And that could be enough. And it's
Yeah.
not selfish, right? We're not talking about like doing something just for you. It just happens to be that I do believe like that is part of our purpose, is to actually just wake up from the past.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like that's something that happens along the way too. Because what's on the other side of that, I'm not saying that that in itself is not enough. I'm just saying that in my experience with living it and seeing it in others, what happens when you get to that point where you wake up from your past and are able to, you know, be clear of that, that's almost like that's then the starting point of really living, of really getting to flourish. That's a nice word. Let's use
Hey,
that.
I like
Yeah.
that word.
Yeah. And so like yeah, it can be enough, but what I've witnessed is that it turns out that that's just turns out to be an amazing starting point, right? It turns out that then
Right.
something opens up beyond that, that's like, I don't know.
And yeah, and so I think what you might be touching on also is that as we evolve, our purpose evolves. Our
Yes.
purposes become more clear, they evolve. What we thought was our purpose when we were 20 was to drink a lot of vodka early in the morning in my optical illusion mug. But then at 30, we thought something else. And then at 40, we think something else. And at 50, we think, you know, and because we hopefully,
Right.
hopefully are
Right.
evolving, are growing,
Yes.
are expanding our consciousness, are expanding our perceptions and our ideas of what's even possible for ourselves, for the world around us.
I guess a good way to say what I was trying to say, especially with what you just said, is that if you are still stuck or we'll use stuck, in the past and in the traumas of the past, then absolutely your purpose, a beautiful purpose would be to kind of wake up from that, get the support you need to be free of that, because that's totally possible and is enough, right? So if that's where you are, like that is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful purpose, right? And then if you've done that, then there's this other thing that opens up.
Totally.
So,
And yeah, and so one thing that I learned in the last like year or 2 years studying Maslow's hierarchy was that later on in his life, you know, he had the hierarchy of needs. It starts with, you know, your basic physical needs like food, shelter, housing, and then it goes into belonging, and it kind of follows all of the chakras, right? And as you go up the pyramid and all of those basic needs keep getting met and met and met, you come to self-actualization. That's the top of his pyramid that most people are familiar with. Later in his life, he realized that that was not enough, and that it was this idea of service and giving back. Like, once you have all of your needs met, what can you do in service, in purpose, on purpose, so that, so, you know, in terms of giving back to the collective, because that was actually the apex of joy, the apex of satisfaction. It wasn't enough to be self-actualized, to say, okay, boom, I have all my needs met. I'm a whole-fledged person. It wasn't enough.
Right.
And that's where this other, like, you know, even above, it's above the pyramid.
Yeah. So, well, so if you think of that, you know, so you think of that as that's the pyramid, and then you have self-actualization, and then you can almost then have it be like almost, and that becomes an hourglass of then the service and the expansion that goes back out. Right.
Beautiful.
So
I love that.
And so that's what I was kind of trying to get at with the kind of, once you get to the place where you can really be kind of clear of your past and recognize that you are, you know, the author of your life, and that you are, you know, you are creating your life. That's that self-actualization apex. And then that then opens up
to limitlessness.
Speaking opening up to limitlessness, you know, it's time to open this up to we've been chatting just for a while. So are there any questions or comments or stumbling blocks or realizations that any of you would like to share? Go for it, Mary.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm on my tiny little phone, so it's a little challenging. I heard you say a word that several times, which has come up over and again in my lifetime, but all the clients I've worked with too in healing work, and it's the word enough. I think people, that whether they are aware of it or not, it's the feeling, I'm not good enough. I'm not enough, you know, for whatever, for somebody, for a relationship, for this job, I didn't have enough to be able to do. I think it's really an important word, and I'm glad you used it spontaneously or however, because if we can face that word, you know, in our own lives, in our own journey, and say, am I feeling down, or am I keeping myself back from taking the next step or trying this because I don't feel enough? And I don't know that everybody has that journey, but it's certainly been part of my own sort of teaching as a child too, the past of, anyway, that's in a nutshell. Leave it open, but thank you for,
thank you, Mary. And I would say a lot of people resonate with that enough history, the not enough history, the history of not enough, I should say.
Enough already, Anna.
We have enough history for sure. Thank you.
Sure, we have enough history. We do have a history of not enough.
Do I have to make a mug? Is there a mug in this?
Another mug, enough.
How many mugs is too much?
Never enough.
Enough. I think if you do a mug, I think you should just say enough and let people go with their own journeys on that.
Exactly.
Like, what does that mean? You know, anyway, thank you.
But does it then depend on like how full your glass is?
Totally. Absolutely. How much coffee is enough?
Well, that would be funny if you had enough up the side of the
That's great. And maybe in color coded, so you could say, I'll take red enough today.
That's good. That's good.
Oh gosh.
Good. I got to be an artist with you and create something.
We'll split all those royalties with you, Mary. Don't worry.
Yeah.
All those tremendous royalties.
Hope it's enough.
Oh
gosh. Debbie, you're unmuted. Did you want to say something? Do you have a joke to share with us?
Settle out. That's funny that you were just talking about that, because this morning I was doing the You Are Enough tapping extended thing on my app. So I'm working on that myself.
Nice.
yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, actually, because like the whole question of, do we have a purpose? 'Cause I have a hard time with that one. Just in terms of like, okay, so there's like some plan, like somebody has a plan. It doesn't seem likely to me. But I think what I've kind of coming around to is more of an idea that we create our own purpose, like you don't have to like come in with a purpose necessarily. I know a lot of people do feel that, but for me, like it's easier for me to think about it that way. It's just like, yeah, I mean, okay, so we're animals, animals are all beautiful, and there's, just like saying that, oh, we're just animals, like to me is not, it's kind of demeaning to animals, I guess. Oh, we're animals. Oh my God, it's so amazing. And on top of being animals, we like actually have the ability to create a purpose for ourselves. So yeah, I guess that's just where I'm sitting with it right now. Because when people say things like everything happens for a reason, I'm like, well, what could the reason be for that? Like, how can I figure out like what that reason is, because it's if there's like a reason, like something happened to make it happen, sure, I can understand that, but if somebody's like thinking this stuff up and you're just like, well, that's not cool, so yeah, so that's just where my brain's been going lately.
Debbie, I wish that you would have just started us off with that, because I have so much to say about what you said. We're like so close to the end. But one, I think the plan versus purpose is a really good, something to consider, like the plan versus purpose. And you said something in between that I don't remember, but because now I want to talk about everything happens for a reason. And there's a way that I've navigated that for myself, and it's actually kind of the AFGO thing that we've talked about. Like, so the way that I've navigated this for myself, and what I choose to believe about things happening for a reason, is the reason is actually kind of always the same. And the reason is to show us where our beliefs don't align with the truth, let's say, like where it is where we still have limiting beliefs, where it is that we don't understand the whole truth of who we are, what we're capable of as like creators incarnate. And so when things happen that seem random and horrible or even wonderful, it's like it's there as an opportunity for us to see where our past is perhaps still has a hold on us, where there's some limiting beliefs, where we still are, where that we haven't fully grasped like who we are and what we can do.
Yeah, I think like, again, like I'm like my mind just wants to put like a slightly different spin on it, where it's like, okay, these things aren't happening for a reason, they're just happening, and our opportunity is to learn from them. So
Absolutely.
with the AFCO
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay, this is, it's like anything could happen in my life. I don't know. Maybe there is more of a plan. I'm willing to, consider that as a possibility, but like you were saying, there's no way I'm going to know. So yeah, for me, I feel like I don't know, at this point, without having some other insight, I just have to kind of just look at it that way. Like, okay, this is happening. This is my opportunity. This is my ability as a human to grow from this. And
Yeah.
okay.
And I'll leave you with a question, since we're at time and beyond, actually, which is just a reflection, a pondering question, which is to say, you keep saying, like, it's hard for me to believe that there is a plan from someone out there. And what if the plan was written by you? And if in terms of if the consciousness that is within you is infinite and never ending, and it is just your body is this finite expression of this consciousness, could it be possible that it was you that made the plan? You not being Debbie in this lifetime here and now where you are standing, but you being this consciousness that has no beginning and no end. And that this was part of your plan. Like, yeah, I'm going to go into this lifetime and it's going to be really fun. Woo, it's going to be awesome. But I'm going to learn so much. And I'm going to finally figure out this one thing that's been eluding me. That's just a bit of reflection for you. Not saying you have to believe it.
Mary, did you want to say something?
Well, I just wanted to say, because I know I can say it in this group after Debbie was sharing, shit happens, you know, using that term, it's a short paraphrase of what Debbie was talking about, but shit happens, and we live in this time of a whole new world of creating, re-envisioning how to use resources. That's what I want to say. So we can take the shit and how to be, it's sort of like, if a beetle can make water out of air, so can we. If we take the shit and process it, you know, we can make something that for the new next generation or for ourselves. And it just struck me that we're in that time globally as well, to take whatever's there and do something different with it. So on an everyday, for each of us on an everyday path, but I think that we're in sync with the whole world, or a lot of the world that's trying to do that. Does that make sense? Just
Yeah,
wanted to-
it definitely makes sense. And it's kind of like when life gives you shit, make shit-a-nade or something.
Well, no, I didn't quite go there, but compost is a really valuable thing. Could we say that differently? Yeah. Okay.
We can, I'll work on it. It's good. It's another good mug option. So I'll work on it. That's my wheelhouse.
You guys are such fun. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. And we'll see you in 2 weeks, I think.
I think 3.
Is it 3 this time?
Yeah.
Very confusing.
We'll see you on the first Thursday.
First Thursday, let's call it that. We'll see you
Oh,
first.
actually, I'm looking at September. So no, it's 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks.
All right.
See you on the 2nd. No. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. And so we'll continue our journey of purpose.